the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AVWeek, episode 176, recorded Friday, January 2nd, 2015. Not George Clooney.
Ready.
AVWeek.
Performing. Scan.
Week.
Online.
This is AVWeek. AVWeek. This is AVWeek, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright, because nobody's fired me yet. Put-up-ching. With us this week is Dawn Mead from NetAV, also known as AV Dawn, and the host, or one of the hosts of our AV Social. How are you, ma'am?
Very good, thank you. Joined by AV Wesley over here.
AV Wesley. Happy New Year to you, ma'am.
Thank you, you too.
Can I ask a question? Just a stupid, totally non sequitur. We have a Maltese at home. That your Wesley, which is a Scotty, looks an awful lot like a Maltese. Why is that? Do you know?
I don't know why you'd look like a Maltese. He's a Westie, actually.
Westie. I'm sorry, not Scotty.
So he's the extremely pale cousin of a Scotty dog,
okay.
Basically.
No, I don't know. My Maltese a lot of times looks just like Wesley does. So, I don't know.
Cute, white, fluffy puppy.
Exactly. Basically, yes. Cute, white, fluffy, small dog. So, you and my wife are both those. Anyhow. You like. Never mind. I was going to make a fat joke for me and Harry.
Digging yourself a hole.
I am. George Tucker, save me, please. He's the engineering coordinator for World Stage in the left side of my brain. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. He is, like I said, from... yeah. He got robbed, by the way, of the Oscar on that one. Last but not least, my favorite Canadian for the day, at least.
Wow. For the day.
Matt D. Scott from Omega Audio Video in London, Ontario, Canada. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good.
Excellent.
Yeah. So, as I said, this is, Happy New Year and all that jazz. I refuse to talk about football at this point.
But why not? It's so much fun.
It is. As long as somebody beats either the Patriots or the Packers, I don't care. So
Steelers will try very hard.
The Steelers will try very hard.
We like taking out the Patriots.
Come on, Big Ben.
Yeah, well, Big Ben,
Help us out.
At this point, I'll even vote for Romo.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, all right. So here's what it is. This is the year. The year kind of the end of the year kind of was a little wonky there. And in years past, we have done kind of a best of the week of Christmas, which we did. But Christmas the way it felt every year. So we're doing our year-end review, year-end preview around the 1st of 2015. So here are at least my crib notes for this show. A couple things happened this year. We had a number of passings in the world of AV, in the world of technology. Both Dr. Bose and Dr. Dolby passed away here in the last couple of months, not exclusively AV, but Uber AV. George Feldstein, the founder and brains and brawn and everything behind Crestron, unfortunately passed away. He had passed his mantle on back in May to Randy Klein and a few others. We did a story a couple weeks ago about Sennheiser, Dr. Sennheiser passing his mantle on. So we had a lot of leadership change, right, where you've got the old guard going from into retirement, and we have new leadership and how that's going to affect. We also had a number of technology changes this year. For me, this could have been the year of 4K. Unfortunately for Dawn and I, it could not have been the year of OLED, but we'll get to that. So this is kind of what I'm going to ask you guys first. So the first go around is this. George, we'll kick it off with you. What were some of the bigger stories in the world of AV for this year?
Oh, good gosh. So start off with a softball question, why don't you?
Well, it was that or astrophysics, one of the two.
I could probably answer the astrophysics. They found organics on Mars. There you go.
And water.
That was what? And well, there was evidence of water, but that was a while ago. That was the other curiosity. What other rovers? The biggest story. Jeez. The continuing emergence of, say, AVB and Dante into systems. I don't want to put too light of a thing on it, but that's going to be a really big change for a while. We've been doing other stuff. All the other manufacturers are making their own sort of, HD over category cable stuff, but having the ability to put Dante and AVB into prosumer, consumer stuff is going to be a really big change. That's something I've been keeping a track on.
Okay, so it's the whole networked audio and hopefully for those that are like AVB video. So that's your biggest story is the networking part of that and the ability to send it over.
Well, yeah, it depends on what you're talking about. From the pro staging side, it's all about, say, again, Dante, but also that we didn't have as many sheds go down this year.
Oh.
You're talking about live.
Yeah.
Remember 2013? Oof, in the summer of that, man, there was sheds going down in Germany and in Kansas. And something
it was
changed.
2011 too, dude. You remember one of the first, we started this show in 2011. One of the first shows we did with George and Linda Frembis. We were talking about that very thing, and with PSNI and some of the initiatives that they were doing to try to shore up some of that technology and making sure that the sheds didn't go down.
Yeah. So.
Okay. All right, Mr. Scott, from your standpoint in the Great White North, what were some of the bigger stories for AV in 2014?
Probably the biggest two that I saw were, delved around 4K and its proposed, new saving of the AV. It's going to make everyone buy new panels, whether they be curved, whether they be OLED, whether they be whatever. 4K was going to be the big thing, and it's it's kind of we've sold a couple panels, especially in the resi market. I think that one still begs to be seen. We've got a lot of who was it? Was it Panasonic that announced just this past month that they've got an 8K that they're going to bring potentially to CES? Yeah. So I think we're still going to see and continue to talk about new resolutions, even as most consumers and even in a lot of corporate worlds, people aren't even running full 1080p yet, which is kind of the bit of the comedy of the factor to me. The other story, which I still think is huge and still evolving and will continue to evolve, is network. And literally, it's the backbone, the basis of AVB and Dante and all these other formats. I think we're going to continue to see more things that are not only controlled, but just completely standalone, sitting on the network in some form, some fashion. And, it's one of those situations where we are going to have to continue as professionals to go after that IT market, because the guys that don't touch network are going to be left behind. And I think that was one of the other stories that, again, I'm not really picking one exact story, but I think that's kind of an overreaching aspect of what's been going on this year.
One of the things that I'm going to ask you this directly, Matt, because you brought up the whole networking thing.
Yeah.
One of the narratives that has kind of thread through this year about networking is how people stay up to date on it. How do you get folks that are, AV professionals who are in their 40s or 50s to bone up on, their network knowledge?
And that's a tough one, because as much of a science as there is to networking, there's a lot of best practices that are either manufacturer specific or personnel specific. There's a lot of just basic, obviously every wiring standards and all that jazz is definite and in place, but for heaven's sakes, I had an argument last week with a contractor over A versus B network jacks, and it's like, hey, who really cares? Just do one. As long as we have one, I'm happy.
You mean the wiring configuration?
Yes. I had a pinout debate for about 20 minutes on why we were using B instead of A. And Again, I think that leads to a much larger conversation. But to get back to your specific question, it's tough. I know probably the easiest way is to make sure that you're staying up to date and hopefully certified with one of the major networking companies, albeit, or sorry, whether it be Cisco or whoever, trying to stay up to date with a specific company, a specific firm, and trying to keep some form of certification with them will help you stay up to date. If you're trying to do it as a, learn on your own, do it yourself type deal, it's really, really tough. I know even like we're Cisco partners, and there's a whole bunch of, I quoted a job about 3 weeks ago where they replaced one product that we normally sell with a new one. That new product required 70 hours of training and 30 hours of testing to be able to sell. And it hits this level, and we were here. So for us to sell the replacement for a product that we've sold for 4 or 5 years, we as a company have to have someone who takes this certification, takes this level to be able to sell it. And again, that's one of those things. It's as much as nothing has really changed in that, and our guys can go and install that tomorrow, we have to have that certification. So it's something where it's tough to stay up to date, because it's not like it used to be 3-4 years ago, where as long as you understood the basics and you kind of paid attention, you could stay competent. Now it's something where if you're going to dive into it, and personally I think you have to in our industry moving forward, you almost have to have somebody dedicated to your networking side.
Yeah.
It's no longer a part-time job where you've got, a kid or whatever, somebody who does this half the time and wires racks the other time. You're going to have somebody who does nothing but stays current, stays up to date, takes all the Infocom trainings or all the CEDIA trainings, or Cisco or whoever provides the training, Luxol, whatever. But fighting to stay up to date, because that's where the majority of the issues are running now. It's no longer I don't have connectivity on this mic input. It's, why can't I get this server to talk to that server that's supposed to be feeding media to my digital signage board? It's become so heavy networking.
All right, Miss Dawn, from your standpoint, what were some of the bigger stories for 2014?
Well, I think Matt brings up a really good point. Every one of us that comes on this show, we all have day jobs, we all have our own companies and our own areas, and something that is a big deal to me in the pro and government world may or may not be a such big deal to George in the live staging events world, or Matt in the home resi world. But at the same time, so obviously my opinion on what the biggest stories are going to be colored by my company's perspective.
Yeah.
And my company's been undergoing a shift this year, which heavily changes my perspective of what the biggest stories are. That said, I'm going to go back to what Matt just said and say the biggest stories, in my view, from this year have to do with networking. Because, okay, 4K, 8K, whatever K, 89K, it doesn't matter. It's just like the old days when it was like, oh, this projector is 12 ANSI lumens brighter than that projector. Oh, this panel is 12K bigger than that projector. It's just a race at this point. And, most people don't care about that 12 ANSI lumens or that 12K. As you guys both said, Matt and George, I believe, both said, people aren't really buying the 4Ks or the 8Ks or the whatever Ks because it's need driven. And what they've got is great for what they need.
Yeah.
The big stories, in my view, are the networking stories. The fact that some of the biggest, most exciting things we saw at Infocom this year were EHG, network monitoring and management, were SVSI bringing out more and more network switching and network delivery of video. All of these companies, if you were over in the video conferencing pavilion at Infocom this year, how many of them were actually codecs a la Cisco and Polycom, and how many of them were virtual meeting rooms, network and cloud-based video conferencing and media sharing? Same with over in the digital signage pavilion. Sure, there are people still selling little boxes. A lot of the companies are working on software solutions that deliver via the network. And so even though Infocom has been harping on network for probably 10 years at this point, convergence is coming, convergence is coming, convergence is here, there it goes. It's here. I mean, it's not going. And now is when the companies, integrators out there that are listening, if you haven't already started making a shift, a concerted effort towards building up your networking side and your network-based product side, you're already falling behind. You need to get off your duff and get doing it. For those companies that are, I mean, that's what my company has spent the last entire year doing, is we've had over a year now of ramp up an infrastructure within the company to get more in that world, because that's where the AV industry is going. And Matt's exactly right. You need to have someone with networking certifications on board your company. If the specs aren't asking for them already, they will be very soon. And some of the federal specs are asking for them already. So it's an area that it just can't be understated at this point that, you know, it's here, it's now, it's not something that's coming. It's open your eyes, look around, and then figure out how you're going to react to it. And I think things like that are the biggest stories. Aside from, as you said, it's been a year of transitions within companies with passings and baton handovers of leadership and things that are going to impact us down the road. But that's sort of the background stuff. That's the industry only stuff. The stuff that you need to know to go out and talk to your customers and talk to your clients and talk to your end users. It's the network stuff.
Yeah.
And if you're not there, man, God help you, better hurry up.
No, you know, something that Dawn touched on, I think, but we haven't really paid attention to yet is IPv6.
Yeah.
That's where what Matt said and what Dawn said will really come to fruition. It will no longer be just the passing knowledge, because everything changes. How things are dealt with on the packet level all the way up to how you address things is going to be both simpler and far more complicated. And for those who may not know, IPv6 is a new addressing protocol that expands the current number of addresses available to infinite, practically.
Sure don't say infinite, George.
Yeah, well, you know, and beyond. But even Zadi would probably argue with me on this. I was about to say, but you know, it does give us a better foothold on stuff. So that's where it's going to really change, and we're going to have a far more intensive knowledge on how things work. To Matt's point, I had to have stuff, you know, and the training to get to that level, and it takes that time. And same thing in the live staging world as well. I mean, we got guys who now have to learn the basics of IP to get a Dante system together and online and troubleshoot, you know, while they're in session. So it's forever changed. It's been happening for the last 20 years, maybe even the last 10 intensively, but absolutely we need to be able to get our staff and ourselves at least up to the paces where we can understand tech support's help.
Well, I think this has got to, and granted, you know, I've only been in the industry, you know, for close to 15 years now, I guess. But I feel like this is really the biggest and most profound paradigm shift in all realms of the AV industry. There was a big shift when, for example, staging went from incandescent to LED, or started to go that way. There was a big shift when panels went to LED. But this is dramatically changing the way systems are even designed, let alone sold and installed. And I find that, you know, we were most of us, minus George, were at a CI summit this year, and you know, we kept talking about the differences between, you know, my generation and how we're approaching the business and what we're doing, and how some of the older guys that have been in this for 30 years, 40 years are doing things. And you know, obviously there was a lot of talk about business principles and all that jazz, but as much as this is new for even guys like myself, the IP-based system or equipment, it's not that new. There was, you know, I grew up with some form of the internet as far back as I can remember. That's not standard for a lot of people, and I think that's part of what has made this shift even bigger, is that there's been so many people in our industry who have just kind of hands-off approach to it. We don't want to touch it. This is strictly IT's job. I found a bunch of magazines as I've been going through stuff in my house from 4 or 5 years ago, and a bunch of the articles were, no, you need a relationship with IT. You don't want to be IT. Just get a relationship with someone in IT. And I think this is still overlooked in our industry, and it's still something that is coming to terms, and we will get there. But there's still a lot of people that I think personally don't want to touch it and don't want to be involved in it.
Well, and I think that's there's a little bit of accuracy there, right?
Just a little bit. That's all the credit I get. Just a little bit.
I was going. It's a fabulous point. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The show should stop now because that was the most cogent point we will all ever make.
You don't need anything else.
No, nothing. We're done. We're out. See you. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas, you filthy animals. To George's point, though, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, George, the IPv6 goes from the quartet to 6, obviously because it's IPv6, but it goes to an alphanumeric naming system. Is that right?
In addition to, yes.
In addition, so you've got 6 quadrants there, plus it goes from strictly numbers to alphanumeric. So,
yeah, I mean, a simple way to say it is it looks a lot like an IPv4 address, except you've got something on the extra and then a colon and this nice little...
Well, it looks like a MAC address, right? It looks like a MAC address to me.
Yeah, or the way it's formatted, it almost looks like the old way of doing a port,
Oh, yeah.
Accessing a port. But, the government, as Dawn would know, the government is going to start instilling this and has to have compatibility. They haven't started really using it as much. Dawn, correct me, but it has to be there.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Well, and most of the boxes that you're getting, at least in the last 6 months to a year, have had it's either a grayed out button or it's a full on you can switch it button to do IPv6 on most of the AV boxes that I've worked with, whether it's a DSP or a control system or what have you. It's at least been giving us that option. If you've gotten a Windows-based machine, Matt can talk about the Mac version. You can do IPv6 on that. Can you do that in Macs yet, Matt?
Yep.
Okay, so there you go. So we're ready. Except from a hardware standpoint, we may not be ready from a brain processing standpoint yet. So, all right. So let's talk about some of the technology. All right. So the fun stuff that we get to deal with on a daily and weekly basis. Year kicked off with AVB and the AVNU Alliance announcing their very first certified product. I almost said their only, but they at least have one more in the 12 months it's taken. I love those folks, but good Lord, come on, guys, let's ramp up this process here. So they do have 2 certified products. They may have a third one by now. Also came out, CES came out, guns a-blazing with 4K. Everybody and their brother had 4K. Netflix announced that they were going to stream in 4K. You can download YouTube in 4K, and they've announced that they're going to start streaming in 4K. So there's that whole technology there, right? And then you have the further march of digital and the further death of analog, from everything from computers to switches and this, that, and the other. You have, Dawn mentioned SVSI, the march of video over the network. So, Mr. Scott, we'll start with you. What were some of the more exciting technologies that you're taking away? And it may very well be networking as well from 2014.
Yeah, probably some of the most exciting ones that I saw were based on networking. They were, the ability to, and I think it was SVSI, transport full 4K resolution video distributed over a Cat6 cable.
Yeah.
To endpoints at not a, highly cheap price, but an acceptable price for what it does. And, we're still designing a lot of residential systems with straight up, HDMI distribution systems. And the fact that we are now at a point where there are multiple manufacturers who are shipping products that, don't necessarily carry the cost of some of those higher end systems to allow us to do things like that and essentially get video and audio anywhere in a building, anywhere in a house, over a couple of category cables it really was the highlight of my year, and it made us a lot of money too. So there's that.
There is that. There is that. Yeah, I was introduced to SVSI for the first time, the first part of this year, and I'm very, very excited about it. Mr. Tucker, from your standpoint, what were some of the more exciting things technology-wise?
I have to say that it's actually the influx of the mass market automation systems.
Okay.
Simply because watching what happens with Wink, watching what's happening with several established companies trying to turn their established consumer client base into something bigger is going to be a big, big mover. And it was one of my sort of top 3 stories that we were going to go down the list, because whether they succeed or fail, their push will give more incentive to those who want to do it. I was listening to an article on Bloomberg News a couple of weeks ago. I think I told you about this, Tim, about the Internet of Things.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And at one of the sponsors of the consortium for Internet of Things is a company called Greenwave. He was on Bloomberg. And he basically made a lot of points. He didn't mention AMX, Crestron, Savant, any of these players. He mentioned Cisco and Google and Apple and a number of other sort of technology players on the side, the guys that make NFC technologies and stuff like that. And his basic premise was a smart home, mass market. Right now it costs $1,500 to $2,500 to make that happen. It's too much. It's not mass market. It needs to be $500. Start. That's a motivation to shake things up.
Mm-hmm.
That's a motivation to really push at what is it that a company like Crestron or AMX or Savant or any of the other players, even RTI, what are they looking for? What's their market niche? Because it's going to become a niche unless they can somehow take that over.
Yeah.
We'll see if that succeeds or fails in 2015, 2016, but that is a heavy, heavy push from AT&T Uverse to the Wink to the Nest to a number of other things that people have been gobbling up in preparation for something like this. Maybe it turns into be the Microsoft and Apple home of the future, and it just keeps rolling on as this possibility that never really happens. But it's something I'm really keeping a tab on.
Okay, so let me ask you this: and you did call me about this, and you talked about the fact that this guy mentioned Google and Microsoft and Apple and Cisco. Mm-hmm. If that's the case, then does AMX, even if it's AMX by Harman, AMX, Crestron, whoever else, RTI, Aurora, Control 4, whoever you want to throw in that that control mix, do they have do they have the ammunition? Do they have the longevity? Do they have the deep pockets to go toe to toe with Google or with Cisco if these companies, these big giant technology behemoths, decide that this is something that they want to make happen? As much as we all love and admire and have friends that work at Crestron and AMX and have used their products and programmed their products for years, I wouldn't give them. I wouldn't put 2 cents on them when they, you put them in a fight up against Google.
I don't know if that's really a fair statement.
Okay.
And I'll be short about it because they serve a certain market. There's been sort of encroaching, tiptoey, toe in the water attempts to see what the mass market would support with that brand name on it. We have to remember, we mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, that these companies are still all about box sale. And feature-rich may not be their first imperative. It's the basics to work out of the box, to do what it's supposed to do. And as technology develops, again, some things that we thought were only in our purview become simpler and simpler to do. Setting up presets, storing stuff, and having it do it. Look, thermostats that are scheduled are still somewhat complicated for people to do. We may say it's, like grandma not knowing how to change the blinking 12 on a VCR or something in the old days. But it's still, there's a segment that can't do it, and making it easier for them might be the benefit. But they're not going to get a lot of this stuff. But you then look at GoPro, which can automatically record stuff, automatically dump it to the cloud, automatically alert you that it's there, automatically connect your phone to it, and you can have some control vis-a-vis that interface. A lot of that stuff is going to have to be condensed and encapsulated in a way that we haven't seen yet. It might very well force a standard. In which, if it works with the Home Depot thing, why doesn't it work with this?
Oh, God love you.
Now, that may very well be where it stops. because they'll all be fighting for their little square inch and never wanting to talk. But that's where that consortium is supposed to come in. Who knows? There's a lot of work going on to make that happen, and they're talking about that. So it's not an afterthought. But then again, it might be the same thing as CEC.
I was going to say, I have two words for you, CEC and MIDI, right? Two ends of I was going to say two ends of the same spectrum, right? The reason I'm also chuckling is I don't know if I put this in my blog post or not. I wrote about AVB's next iteration. They're going after what they're calling their fourth pillar, which is the industrial control market. And I sort of looked in my own little fortune teller crystal ball thing and kind of sort of hinted at the fact that, well, if that happens, if that really comes out and does take place, where you can use AVB as a standard, as George said, for control, that could be the genesis for something like what Mr. Tucker just talked about. So, but
if I may,
yeah.
This is a market that incredibly just enamors me, because we do a lot of residential and we sell a lot of the more higher end products in that world, especially when it comes to control and lighting and thermostat control and all this jazz. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around where the price point becomes mass market, because Nest came out with a wonderful product that originally didn't integrate with anything, so it was standalone other than its app, its own app. Mm-hmm. Didn't integrate with anything, did its job great, but it was what, $250 when it first came out?
Yeah.
$200? That's still an expensive thermostat. Whether we're talking a Lutron Honeywell or a generic Honeywell or a Crestron or an AMX thermostat, that's still up there in the realm of an expensive thermostat. It's still not a $29 pick it up at Home Depot thermostat. When I walk into the Home Depots here, there are little plastic cards that say Nest on them, and you have to take them up to the lock counter in the back because they still cost so much stinking money. Right. Drop cam's the same thing. We sell cameras that don't do the exact same type of thing, but we sell a bunch of surveillance cameras that are much cheaper with the same, if not better, optics at, again, a much cheaper price that can still go online. Drop cams are, pushing $250 as well. That's still expensive. Even Lutron's new Cassetta lighting control system, which is supposed to allow us to get into a house at $1,500 to $2,000 and do most main living areas for $1,500. We can do an entire standard house. That A is still a big jump for a lot of people, and B, the dimmers alone are $65 Canadian versus my $15, $10 dimmer at Home Depot or $18 Lutron dimmer at Home Depot. Where does this become? And I'm waiting for someone more intelligent than I to explain to me where this becomes mass market. Do we have to get the dimmer price down to $25, $35 a pop before it's acceptable?
But then don't you sacrifice the quality of the product then?
I would think you would have to. But that's what I'm saying. Even Crestron's new, and I'm totally blanking on the name
Ping?
of it. Their new Ping. I like to ping everywhere. Even that is, just talking dimmers, their dimmer price on that is, I believe, $250. It's a great price. It's a great product. But at $250, I know I can't go to my neighbor today and say, hey, I got a dimmer. You're going to love it. It does all this crap. He's going to ask me how much it is, and when I tell him it's $250, he's going to laugh at me. Because it's still a $250 dimmer. Not getting into all the other jazz about it. We're still in that realm where we're trying to sell solutions, but it still a lot of times will boil down to the actual price.
Yeah, absolutely.
What price point do we have to get to for that to be acceptable?
But Matt, I think one thing that you need to keep in mind, and this is to George's point, is this isn't happening this second that everybody's going to run out and buy these things. This is an evolution, and it's one that's going to have serious implications for the pro side of things in a couple of years.
Oh, definitely.
Right now, you can't go to your neighbor and sell him a $250 dimmer when a $15 one will meet his needs. But the point is, more and more of these home markets and more of these individuals that are reading up on the technologies on whatever blog or magazine, they're starting to get the idea that, for more than what I'm paying for my $15 dimmer, I will get so much return on investment, and I will get so much more control, more energy efficiency, or whatever your selling proposition is, that they're beginning to change their minds and make it more feasible for these $250, or even if they get them down to $150 dimmers, to put in their homes. And I was on a recent AVWeek where we talked about this topic, and Brad Grimes from Infocom used a great phrase that I'm blatantly going to rip off, but we're now in the trickle up world.
Yes.
These people are going to put the $250, $150 smart dimmers and smart everything in their homes. They're going to put the Apple TVs in their homes. They're going to use the FaceTime in their home. And then when we go in there as commercial integrators to sell them a traditional Crestron or AMX or whatever system that costs how many $1,000s, they're going to look at us and say, but I can do this in my house for $5,000 or $250 for the dimmer. And so the comparative of scale is, they're paying even $250 at home. They're not going to want to pay $5,000 at the office, for instance. So it's going to play, this whole evolution that's happening on the control side is going to trickle up into the pro world, and AMX and Crestron and Control 4 and all those guys, you need to be prepared, because it's going to happen. You need to start thinking, how can I make the same quality control systems that everybody has been asking us for generations, but do it in a way that's more comparable with the home pricing, so that we don't have these drama when the pro integrator comes in with my product and gets thrown or laughed out of the office by the CIO who has all the same crap at home, but a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
Well, and I think they've had a lot of practice doing this in realizing that the iPad is their touch panel, right?
Exactly.
They've already got there. And don't get me wrong, I'm not negating it, but part of what I'm trying to say is that, are we not kind of already there to where these are mass accepted products? Like, it takes, not right now because gas prices are so stinking cheap, but 6 months ago, it took me $120 to fill my truck. That's the dimmer for a great, no matter what system we're looking at, that's pretty easily a standard dimmer in that system. A fuel fill, is that not, again, is that not acceptable? Is that not now our true market? Right?
Well, and I think we already are. You asked the question, when is it going to be as cheap as $15? Well, I don't know that.
No, I didn't ask when it's going to be 15. I asked, is that where we're now? Is that what we have to get to?
Is that the magic price? I think is.
Yeah, is that the magic price for the general populace to start saying, okay, this is now open for me? Because to me, it's not. To me, that's ridiculous. I have no problem spending, $50 again talking dimmers, $50 to $100 on a dimmer that gives me all this stuff. Is that not our acceptable level?
And I think it depends where you're coming from. With you working mostly in resi and guys saying, well, I could get a dimmer for 15, even if it doesn't do quite as much. For you, it's not quite mass market yet. For those of us in corporate and in government where they have the $150, $250 dimmers at home, and we want to try to sell them a full traditional Crestron or AMX, they see our prices and just laugh and say, what is this? Yeah. So I think whether it's mass market depends on your perspective. And from my end, man, we're already there and starting to get questions like, why can't I just do it this way?
Yeah. Well, look at it this way. Insteon, smarthome.com, dimmers.
Yeah.
Keypad, $79.99. Right? They range with light switches to dimmers from about $40 to about $100. Therein lies near to your magic price. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying, again, like I said earlier, that the other companies are going to go away but their focus might not necessarily be the mass market anymore, or you will find the remote control or RTI inside of something. We're partnering with others to make that happen so that the name and the brand carry through. But the technology itself, and again, how many features are you going to get? They want to sell boxes. That's all they're going to do is sell boxes off a shelf. So, we've seen the model. The Best Buy Geek Squad doesn't really work. Maybe it will someday, but that's my only point of that, is that there is a magic number. It's out there. You can quibble on the quality of Insteon, but it's the same place all those other things are going to be made.
Yeah. All right. Miss Dawn, I don't think that you've had your chance to talk about specifically your technology that kind of got you excited this year, and this is where you get to lament the loss of OLED and all that jazz.
And actually, here I was just about to say, I'm going to sound like a broken record because my technology that excites me this year is the one that's excited me for like the past 10, and it's finally starting to come. It's finally starting to arrive. Even with some people saying they're getting out of it, this shopping season, I'm looking online right now, I can get an LG 55-inch, finally, OLED for my house smart TV. It might not be 4K, 8K, or 89K, but I can get it for like $4,000.
Mm-hmm.
A couple years ago, if they even went that big, they were like $10,000, $20,000. They're starting to get affordable. They're starting to be for realsies. And thank God I've been trying since I worked 2 companies ago and first heard about this technology to get one. And Harry hasn't quite bought it for me yet. Santa didn't put it under my tree yet, but I'm hoping that this year or next I might finally get my OLED.
All right, I am hoping for you as well, because once you get one, then I can convince my wife that we need one. So, all right, as we wrap up,
I got one.
You want? Well, yeah. Go
You're
ahead.
having a baby.
Everybody, you get an OLED. You get an OLED. Wait a minute, I'm not Oprah. As we wrap up this year, this show, kind of what we do every year is go around the horn and pontificate about what we'll see in the next 12 months when it comes to AV technology, AV stories. As we are recording this and posting it, CES is coming on our heels, and shortly thereafter, ISE, Integrated System Europe 2015. So we'll quickly see whether or not any of us are right. So Dawn, we will do ladies first on what you see coming down the pipe in 2015.
We talked about it right at the beginning, and that's more network stuff. This year, as I mentioned, Infocom, the belle of the ball, kind of for us anyway, was like the AG stuff and the virtual meeting rooms and those sorts of things. We're getting to the point that I think that's going to be more and more booths at Infocom, more and more companies and technologies will be bringing that to our field, and I think that's where we need to be paying attention. One other thing I wanted to mention, I said I was on a recent AVWeek, and we talked about print publishing, because we were talking about one of the traditional online-only magazines is suddenly coming out with a print version. Right after we recorded that show, I was looking through some of my marketing things, and Joe Polizzi, the founder of Content Marketing Institute, his big prediction for 2015 was a surge in print magazines coming out from brands.
Wow.
His exact quote was, as more brands continue focusing heavily on digital, smart brands will realize it's easier to cut through the clutter by leveraging the posts without much competition.
Damn hipsters.
So it's maybe not so crazy to think that we're going to be seeing more print magazines and of course more networked things. So those are kind of my big ideas there.
Damn hipsters. I thought hipsters, you were like tree huggers and they wouldn't be into the whole magazine. So.
Oh no, they're the ones that bring typewriters instead of smartphones.
Yep. Wow. Okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah. They're all the retro things.
Yeah.
George could be a hipster. He's got the beard for it.
Nice. No, I'm not. I'm too old.
Well, that is true. You are too old for that.
I might be an inspiration.
There you go. You're like
we'll see. Depends how skinny his jeans are when we see him next.
No skinny jeans. Back in the day, in my young 20s, when I had a 29-inch waist, yes, but no.
I did at 1.2. I was 5. All right. Yes, that was a fat joke. Mr. Tucker,
Yeah.
Give me your prognostications there, sir, for 2015.
You know, I'm looking a lot at sensors, the Internet of Things. Those are sort of my look aheads at the moment. And I mean sensors because we all know what sensors are, but I'm looking for a lot of voice command and knowing where you are and being able to understand the proximity and sort of doing the commands based on that without your interference or having to act upon them. That's really what I'm going to look at.
Okay, that will work. All right, Matt Scott, you have the final of the panel. I still have my one bad prediction to make. So
Nice. I don't really know. I feel like the internet, IP-based stuff will continue to essentially pummel the market and really kind of show us where we're going. I don't see in the near to distant future a time where the only plug we'll have on most of our devices will be a network jack. There won't be HDMI. There won't be composite anything. There won't be anything analog. There won't be headphone jacks. It'll just be an IP network jack. And I don't know if that'll be this year, but I don't think it's that far off. I also see a lot of issues coming up with security, and I think that's going to be, aka Sony, one of the kind of the biggest things that's going to almost, I feel like we hit a lull where IT in corporate was finally saying, okay, that's fine, you can bring your AV stuff on our network, it'll be cool. I think that relationship's going to go downhill real fast this year, and I think they're going to, again, just as we talked earlier in the show, with people not being certified, not really knowing what they're doing at times when it comes to the network, I think you're going to see a huge backlash from IT departments in all of our corporate projects that we're working on, not allowing AV or anybody who isn't in their IT field to touch anything that plugs into their network, just because everyone is going to get more and more paranoid. And the last thing that I'm hoping to see, I don't know if this is a good prediction or not, but I'm really hoping to see more companies get behind this idea of we provide solutions, not boxes, and we provide services, not low prices. I'm kind of getting tired of seeing people coming in and just trying to undercut everyone, because honestly, it just makes us as an industry look bad. Yeah. It makes us look like we don't know what we're doing. I know you'll always have those guys that want to do that, but I'm hoping some of our trendsetters and companies that are actually pushing the industry forward to continue to get away from that, continue to make our industry, our business models, our companies be of value and not just another big box store where you can buy stuff, because we don't need that. We need our companies, our industry, to continue to provide solutions and not sell products.
I like that. I like that a lot. All right.
If I could jump in
yes,
for 2
absolutely.
seconds.
Absolutely.
Just to tie up two of Matt's predictions with one of my own, this is where the education and the commitment to working in the new networked AV paradigm is going to come into play, and be a facet of providing services and quality to our customers rather than just low prices. And that's because of things like the Sony break-in and the security issues. I mean, here we're predicting 2015, and what Matt said and was talking about with Sony, we already addressed some of that in classes at InfoComm 2014. We had network security classes, a seminar on Super Tuesday I sat in. The entire new InfoComm Apex program is built around both implementation of the InfoComm standards, but it's also built around some of the InfoComm networking documents, like the ports and protocols document that most AV integrators don't even know exists, let alone use. And so things like that, things that make us more conversant in IT and allow us to prove that we're not a risk and that we can provide all of these services and all of this monitoring and all of this value without giving, whatever country the crazy hackers come from access to your system. that's where we're going to find success. And again, if you're not one of those AV companies that's already getting the IT education, certifications, or training, you better hurry up and get there. And those of you that are, pay attention to things like security, pay attention to the Infocom standards, because they're going to play a big role going forward, especially if the IT companies tighten down like Matt's predicting.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Don't let it be said that I make you guys go out on a limb and I don't join you myself. Here's my two predictions, I guess. The first one is one I've been making. Huh?
Who's Cisco buying this year?
They're buying a control company. I don't know which one, but they're buying a control company. And I'm telling you, eventually, one of these years, it will be right.
If I say it, it'll come true.
Here's the thing, and I will hold to this. Cisco is, I don't know from a monetary standpoint, but let's just say they're not the biggest network, or they're not the biggest technology company in the world. Obviously, you've got Google, you have Apple. But as far as the infrastructure and the networking and the making this talk to that, they are one of the more important ones. They purchased Hamburg 2 years ago now, and they've spent the last few years integrating that and turning everything, Tandberg into Cisco. They probably have a good another year of that left, and they're a control company makes sense. Now, I don't run Cisco. I don't know anybody who does, so they may not think it makes sense. But as far as the way that they've been purchasing things and talking, it looks very much like either they're going to buy one or they're going to develop one themselves, and they haven't exactly been known to develop things themselves the last few years, so purchasing one. The other thing is, and this is kind of more of a touchy-feely, emotional one, I think it's the year that the AV world gets smaller. And what I mean by that is Infocom a number of months ago put out an economic report that said by 2016, the Asia-China, the Asia-Pacific rim is going to be a bigger market than the U.S. And what that means from both those people, for people in the U.S. as well as people in those markets, is yes, your market's going to be bigger than the U.S. Awesome, groovy. You've got a growing market. You have an opportunity to learn from a lot of mistakes, and people in the U.S. market who have been doing this for a lot of years, you have the opportunity to pay it forward, right? So reach out to folks. You're going to meet people at Infocom. You're going to meet people at the CDS show. You're going to meet people at the ISE show who are from these developing countries. Connect with them, right? Network with them. Help them out, because you know what? They're going to learn some things, and they're going to be able to help you out. So the entire planet is getting smaller every year, and this, I think, is the year that we in the AV industry are really, really going to kind of feel that. So those are my two. That's all I got. So thank you guys so much, Dawn Mead from Net AV and AV Social. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for having me.
Where can people find you?
If you want to find me, I'm always on Twitter at AVDawn. This is one of my New Year resolutions, and sadly, I think it was one of my last year New Year resolutions, but I will be getting the AV Dawn website blog back up and running a little more. But I'm also promising, and I have 3 other board members here listening to me say this, I am promising to actually contribute a blog or two to AVNation's blogs this year.
No.
I know. I feel guilty writing for AVNation when I won't even write for my own blog, but I'm concerted effort to make more time this year to put down a few words and realize to myself that I don't have to write a dissertation every time I write a blog.
No, ma'am.
And I like to talk and I like to write, and I just get really verbose and just keep going, and then I get hypercritical. So I will be updating that, but. Keep an eye on AVNation.
Hypercritical of herself, just for the record. That's what she said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Just keep an eye out on avnation.tv and avdawn.com, and hopefully there'll be some new info there.
Okay, no. Just for the record, Dawn, the average length of my post is like 300, 350. So.
And if you read back through some of the novels I've written in AV Dawn in the past, you'll see why it takes me so long to come up with and post things. But.
All right. Mr. Matt D. Scott from Omega Audio Video, as well as, our webmaster for one, and our marketing guy and everything else. He makes me look pretty, which is not an easy job. So
Hours of Photoshop.
Hours of Photoshop.
Hours. Stand next to him.
I was gonna say, you suck at your job because I'm nowhere near pretty enough. But go ahead.
Have you looked at some of your headshots?
I have. They're very nice. They're very nice.
That's not George Clooney.
Little hair, little fill-in.
Looks a little bit too much like John Goodman, if you're asking me. But
He was a great guy. Though.
he was an awesome.
He is a great guy.
He is. Where can people find you, sir?
I'm pretty easy to find. You can either Google my name, Matt D. Scott, or hit pretty much any social media area, Matt D. Scott. It's pretty simple. Twitter, Facebook, Google+, Pinterest, if you're feeling crazy. I'm pretty easy to find.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. And last but not least, George Tucker, engineering coordinator for World Stage, and a whole lot of stuff here at AVNation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, and everybody have a good holiday, a happy new year. Be safe.
Yeah.
No drinking and driving, folks, huh? Too much of that nonsense. You can find me, though, Tucker2's Twitter. Tucker2's almost anywhere, social media. I'm also on Commercial Integrator, Tech Decisions magazines, various and sundry other places.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess you could follow me on Twitter. I'm not sure why you would want to, because at this point I'm just going to yak about the Bears sucking. So, but go by the website, because like I said, Matt does a fabulous job, and Josh Schrago does a great job being the editor, and I'm not even sure what I do at this point, so I just kind of show up. AVNation.tv, AVNation.tv, you will find this program and a host of others. Tons of new ones have come down the pike in the last 6 months, and we've got some really, really cool and really, really exciting things coming down 1st of January and February. Obviously, we're going to ISE 2015, and thank you all that gave to that. George and I get to hang out in a apartment in Amsterdam for 3 or 4 days, and then fly back. So
Neto too,
and Bill O'Donnell. Bill O'Donnell's paying his own way. God love him, and is helping us out. So that's just crazy to me. But good for that's awesome to have him. So yeah, that's coming down. We're going to have a brand new episode of AV Crosstalk very, very soon. And let me just put it to you this way. You don't want to miss this. This is two significant women in AV that are going to go at it. Not like, meanly, but it'll be a good discussion. So, but yeah, check it out, avnation.tv, avnation.tv. Thank you so much. Enjoy your 2015. Thanks much. This is Tim. Bye-bye.